Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. My name is Grace Bell. So, wanted to speak a little bit about powerlessness. So many people, when they come to work with me or come to Eating Peace Retreat or just write, they will say that they feel so trapped. They feel like they're in prison when it comes to this compulsive cycle. They feel like they cannot break out of something, and often it's lasted for years and years. Maybe their first memories of being in this dilemma around food and eating and how crazy it feels started when they were a child. I know the feeling. I know that sense of powerlessness and the resignation you can experience around it. Like, just, it's so horrible, and there's so much suffering and angst and confusion about what's going on. It just feels like you want to collapse to the ground, and you might even feel that on the inside as a feeling, giving up. There's nothing to be done here. So I want to just bring a little bit of an interesting antidote to this sense of powerlessness to our work today, and to invite you to find power. And I mean that in the most solid, integrous, rooted way. There can be a place, I find, for firm power in yourself, in the world, right? We see it already, that it's in reality, actually anger in enormous forms, in a huge multitude of forms, including violence and hatred and fury, all exist in reality. And we know it doesn't work very well when you get really violent. In fact, diet mentality itself is quite violent. It's controlled. It's like setting up a dictatorship in a way around who you are and what you're doing sometimes. So, I've said there's other videos and other work to be done around offering you some structure that feels safe and comforting and comfortable. Totally fine. I'm just talking about this way of feeling intensely controlled and like you are powerless, or something within you is completely powerless. So people use that word, the words that indicate powerlessness, entirely trapped, in prison, cannot break out. And we love the break free story, don't we? It's beautiful to break free of some kind of process like this that seems ongoing and painful and horrible. So I want to give you a little sense of that today. I want to give you just an invitation to tap into your own personal authority, your own power, because you have it. You are able to do it. I mean, you rush into eating, right? Either binge eating, which is like huge stormy eating, or even just graze eating, overeating. So it can feel like that's a sense of powerlessness, that you just kind of wind up tipping over and you're going over the edge and eating too much. But if you can do that, you have just as much of the capacity and the freedom to stop. And it may take a little more pinpointed concentration. So one of my favorite idols and role models and a great historical figure is Gandhi. This imperfect but sincere but beautiful, loving man in service. I mean, a human being who literally changed his entire country and changed the world, really. And he stood with this kind of power, rooted and solid, standing up for himself, standing up for his principles. And you can do that when it comes to food and eating and this compulsion. Anything compulsive. You can say no. So I think there's a Gandhi quote, which I don't have right in front of me, where it says, first they don't even listen to you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And those are kind of fighting words. And there is a sense of competition that can be intense, joyful, powerful, like the Olympics, like tennis matches, like the joy or the game of winning that feels good, that has a flame in it. So one way to call that forth in you today is to name it, give it a name. Give it a name. You can call it power, or you can find some sort of image or one word that really seems to embody that sense of power. I like Amazon. Amazon. Just have this image of racing through the woods with a bow and arrow and being incredibly powerful. I don't know much about the Amazons, but this enormously powerful female figure. In the recent movie that has come out, Black Panther, there are some incredibly powerful people that also stand for peace. So you can just find the image that you want to use and know you have the capacity to hold that. There can be a deep commitment, even in this spiritual realm, this ultimately reaching for peace or committed to peace. There's a place for something that is got lots of energy in it and intensity. Anger is one of the things we can use, like we're riding a surfboard. Instead of trying to get rid of it, hold it and use it as something that is helpful for us in our peace, in our recovery, in our feeling smooth and steady when it comes to this whole process of eating and eating peace. So one thing I notice is that anger also exists in reality. Now, people use it in a violent way, and we get very frightened of it. I used to be terrified of anger. Compliant at all costs is what it felt like. Of course, that wasn't really true, because in the privacy of my own home or my own car, I was expressing my own anger and my own desires and my own intensity and the urge and the fury that I had at having to go without, at feeling hungry, at feeling anxious. And so I would sort of act it out through this eating. I'm going to grab something that is soothing and comfortable for me. I'm going to do what I want. And what we're looking at here is taking that same energy, not trying to smash it down or diffuse it in a way so it doesn't exist anymore and become completely trapped, but to use that in support of ourselves. Use it for good, not evil. So anger can be a helper. And that's what I want to just suggest and invite you to work with today. That maybe at that moment that you usually get in your car when you leave work and you begin to think about eating all evening, or when you're by yourself in your empty space at home, or whenever the moments are, maybe you're with a large group of people at a feast, you call on the power of anger or strength or power that is a strong sentry, like the most wonderful and firm and fabulous, strong, standing up, kinds of soldier in a way. I say the word soldier and I hesitate a little bit because it's got such war terminology and we're trying to relax and not be at war. I am just inviting everyone to notice that there are places that are called for in life, in communication, in connection with the world, in connection with ourselves, that call for a strength of standing very, very strong, of being full of energy, of saying no, of drawing a line, of being clear about our boundaries. It's okay, you can't fail at this. So if you notice that you feel too frightened to do that, or too frightened to stick up for yourself, or too frightened to, break through and communicate with somebody in a way that feels so, so different, that's okay. You can just rest with yourself, but you can have that on the inside of yourself, your own voices and how they're battling with each other. You can listen to them and hold them in integrity and in this sense of power. Like rooting yourself like an old grand tree deeply into the ground that has grown and been alive for 500 years. You know, an old growth tree, so strong, so powerful, reaching up to the sky and connected deeply in the earth. You know, a link between heaven and earth, and that we can find this within ourselves. So it's possible to take any moment when you feel the compulsive urge coming on, like that's your only option, and you're powerless and you're trapped and you have dictator voices running you. It's possible to stand up and not be the victim. We love the underdog, you know, the stories of the very small person having a voice. And you've got that in you. I know you do. I knew when I was just in my early 20s in the throes of an eating disorder and feeling incredible despair about it, I also knew at the same time, just like you do, that it is possible. I was not born missing some special thing when it came to food and eating. I was a human being like everyone else with free will, and I knew I could find balance. When I was a baby, I wasn't obsessed with food and eating, weight loss, body image, and I could bring that into my adulthood. I knew I could find it. I just had to study what was so wacky so that I could really understand. And you can too. You don't have to know every little detail about why you've gotten to exactly where you are and what's gone off and what's gone wrong. You can find your own power and just feel it in your body. No, I'm not going to hurt myself. I am not going to hurt myself today. So let me know how that goes. All right. Take good care.